the FBI's recovered new images from Nancy Guthrie's home cameras. Pictures from her front door, driveway, and backyard show people and cars in the days leading up to her disappearance.
2 photographs. Same masked figure, same front door, same woman's home. But something was different. On February 10, 2026, FBI Director Kash Patel released surveillance images recovered from Nancy Guthrie's doorbell camera. The images showed a masked man at her front door in the early morning hours. Everyone assumed both photos were from the same night, February 1st, 2026, the night the 84-year-old woman vanished from her Catalina Foothills home in Tucson, Arizona. But on February 23rd, sources familiar with the investigation told CNN something that changed the entire trajectory of this case. One of those photos wasn't from February 1st. It was taken before, days before, possibly weeks before. The masked figure had been there before. He stood at her door. He studied the camera. He learned the layout. And then he left. But he came back. This time he brought everything he needed. A backpack, a gun, and a plan that had been weeks in the making. Nancy Guthrie is an 84-year-old woman who lived alone in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona, a quiet, established residential area set against the Santa Catalina Mountains, north of the city. The neighborhood is known for its affluent residents, its secluded properties, and its proximity to some of Tucson's most scenic desert landscape. She is the mother of NBC News anchor and Today Show co-host Savannah Guthrie, one of the most recognizable faces in American morning television. Savannah has been with NBC News since 2007 and has co-hosted the Today Show since 2012, sitting alongside Hoda Kotb in one of the most watched morning programs in the country. But Nancy Guthrie's identity extends far beyond being the mother of a famous journalist. She is a woman who raised 3 children, who built a life in Tucson, who attended church services virtually every week, and who was known in her community as kind, private, and devoted to her family. She is also a vulnerable adult by every legal and medical definition. She relies on daily medication for a cardiac condition serious enough to require the implantation of a pacemaker, a device that monitors and regulates her heartbeat. That pacemaker, as investigators would later discover, was connected to her Apple devices and would become a critical piece of evidence in establishing the timeline of her disappearance. As Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos stated publicly at his February 3rd press conference, Nancy could not walk 50 yards by herself. She used a cane for mobility. Her physical condition made it impossible for her to leave her home on foot, especially in the middle of the night, especially across the harsh desert terrain that surrounds her neighborhood. This was not a woman who walked out of her home in the middle of the night. This was not a woman who wandered off confused or disoriented. This was a woman who was taken. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, Nancy had dinner with her family. The gathering was routine, ordinary, the kind of family dinner that happens in homes across America every night. After dinner, her son-in-law, Tommaso Chiotti, who is married to Savannah Guthrie, dropped Nancy off at her home at approximately 9:50 p.m. Mountain Time. That was the last confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie by anyone publicly identified. Nancy's home is a single-story residence in a gated community. The property sits on a quiet cul-de-sac, surrounded by similar homes occupied by retirees and families who value privacy and security. The neighborhood is not the kind of place where strangers wander through unnoticed. What happened next unfolded in a precise digital sequence that the machines in and around her home recorded faithfully. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, her Nest Doorbell camera was tampered with and disconnected. The timestamp is exact. The footage shows a masked figure reaching toward the camera, attempting to obscure the lens. At 2:12 a.m., one of her other home cameras detected motion, but no footage was available. The camera had been disabled, or the footage had been corrupted. Investigators later confirmed that this camera had been deliberately tampered with as well. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker application disconnected from her Apple devices. This is a critical data point. The pacemaker communicates with an app on her phone and other devices via Bluetooth, which has a limited range. When the pacemaker app lost connection at 2:28 a.m., it meant Nancy was no longer within Bluetooth range of her home network. She was no longer in the house. She had been taken. At 2:36 a.m., a Ring camera at a neighbor's home roughly 2.5 miles away captured a vehicle speeding past. The vehicle was traveling at a high rate of speed, unusual for the residential area at that hour. And at approximately noon on February 1st, When Nancy failed to appear for an online church service she attended virtually every week, her absence was noted. Family members attempted to contact her. When she did not respond, they went to her home. They found the door unlocked. They found her phone inside. They found her medication, which she needed daily, still in the house. And they found blood on the front porch. Nancy's blood was confirmed through DNA testing. The blood was fresh. It indicated a struggle or an injury or violence that occurred during the abduction. The FBI was called immediately. Within hours, local, state, and federal law enforcement descended on the Catalina foothills neighborhood. A massive search operation was launched. The desert surrounding the area was combed by search teams on foot, on horseback, and with drones. Sniffer dogs were deployed. Helicopters circled overhead. But Nancy Guthrie was gone. The FBI released surveillance footage showing a masked figure carrying a backpack, a holstered gun, and wearing gloves, tampering with her doorbell camera in the early hours of February 1st. That figure has not been publicly identified, not yet. The family has officially been cleared as suspects by Sheriff Nanos following extensive interviews and investigation. On February 16th, the Sheriff's Department issued a public statement making clear that Nancy Guthrie's adult children, including Savannah, and their spouses, are not suspects in her disappearance. The statement called any suggestion otherwise cruel. And for weeks, the investigation focused on identifying the masked figure captured on camera that night. But on February 23rd, everything investigators thought they knew about this case shifted. Before we examine what changed and why it matters so deeply to this investigation, if you've been following the search for Nancy Guthrie, if cases like this one matter to you, subscribe to Crime Uncovered right now and turn on notifications. We don't just report the headlines. We investigate the details that reveal the truth behind cases that refuse to be forgotten. Every fact matters. Every timeline matters. Every piece of evidence deserves to be examined. Hit that subscribe button, because Nancy Guthrie deserves every investigative resource we can bring to this case, because her family deserves answers, and because cases like this, cases involving vulnerable adults, demand our attention and our vigilance. On February 10, 2026, 9 days after Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, FBI Director Kash Patel made a series of posts on social media that captured national attention. The FBI had partnered with Google, which owns Nest, the company that manufactured Nancy's doorbell camera. The camera itself had been reported missing after her abduction. It had been physically removed from the property, likely by the suspect, in an attempt to destroy evidence. But the suspect made a critical mistake. He didn't understand how Nest cameras work. Nest doorbell cameras, like most modern smart home devices, store footage not just locally on the device itself, but also in the cloud. Video is automatically uploaded to Google's servers in real time, as long as the camera has an internet connection. Even if the physical camera is destroyed or removed, the footage that was captured before that moment remains stored remotely. Investigators were able to recover data that had been stored in the cloud. What they recovered were images and video footage of a masked figure at Nancy Guthrie's front door. The video was chilling. It showed a man in a ski mask approaching the door. He moved deliberately, not rushing, not panicking. He reached up with a gloved hand and attempted to cover the doorbell camera lens. When that didn't work completely, when the camera continued to capture his image, he walked off the porch, bent down, picked up shrubbery from the landscaping near the entryway, and tried to use that to obscure the camera's view. The FBI formally described this person as the suspect in the kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie. In the surveillance footage and in several of the photos, the suspect appeared to be wearing a backpack, a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, which the Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed is only sold at Walmart. Investigators immediately began working with Walmart corporate offices to identify recent purchases of this specific backpack in the Tucson area and surrounding regions. He was also wearing a gun holstered near the center of his waist, an unusual position that caught the attention of firearms experts. Most people who carry holstered weapons position them on the hip or in the appendix position slightly to the side. A center waist holster suggests either a specific type of tactical holster or a deliberate carrying preference designed for concealment or quick access. The backpack had reflective straps that stood out clearly in the night vision footage captured by the Nest camera. These reflective details, which are designed to make hikers visible in low-light conditions, became one of the suspect's most identifiable features. The FBI assessed the suspect to be approximately 5'9" to 5'10" tall, with an average build. This assessment was made using specialized equipment and measurements taken from the footage. FBI examiners erected a white tent at Nancy's property on February 12th to create a blackout environment similar to the nighttime conditions when the footage was captured. They used replica clothing and a backpack similar to what the suspect was wearing and analyzed how the items appeared through the doorbell camera lens, testing reflections and lighting to ensure accuracy in their height assessment. But among the images Director Patel posted on February 10th, one stood out as different. In this particular photo, the masked figure was at the same front door, same mask, same gloves, same posture. But in this image, he was not wearing the backpack, and he was not wearing the gun holster. For nearly 2 weeks, the public, the media, and even some investigators on the ground in Tucson assumed that all of the images released by the FBI were from the same night, February 1st, 2026, the morning Nancy Guthrie was taken. It was a reasonable assumption. The FBI had described the images as being from the morning of her disappearance. The photos showed the same masked figure at the same location. But that assumption was about to be shattered. And when it was, the entire investigation shifted from a case about a kidnapping to a case about a predator who had been planning this for weeks. On February 23, 2026, CNN published a report that fundamentally changed the understanding of this case. A source familiar with the investigation told CNN that the photos and video of the masked person on Nancy Guthrie's doorstep, which had been released by the FBI on February 10th, were taken on 2 different days, not just on February 1st, when authorities believed she was abducted. The reason the source gave was specific and verifiable. In one of the images, the masked suspect is not wearing a backpack. According to the source, that image, the one without the backpack, was captured by Nancy's Nest Doorbell camera on a date prior to February 1st. The exact date was not disclosed, but the source confirmed it was captured days, possibly weeks, before the abduction. CNN reported that the suspect visited Nancy Guthrie's doorstep on multiple occasions, not just the morning she is believed to have been kidnapped. The report sent shockwaves through the true crime community and among those following the case closely. ABC News had first reported this detail, citing their own sources familiar with the investigation. CBS News confirmed it independently with their own law enforcement source. Newsweek cited sources as well, publishing a detailed article that included analysis from former FBI agents. Fox News covered the revelation extensively on multiple programs. Multiple independent news organizations, using multiple independent sources, all confirmed the same thing. The masked figure had been at Nancy Guthrie's front door before the night he took her, and this revelation changed everything. CNN's chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller, a former senior FBI official with decades of experience in counterterrorism and criminal investigations, explained what this revelation meant. He said the fact that the suspect made multiple trips to Nancy Guthrie's front door fits with the investigative assumption that the abduction was calculated in advance and may have involved what he called pre-operational surveillance and reconnaissance. These are terms with specific meanings in law enforcement and intelligence work. Pre-operational surveillance is the phase where the perpetrator gathers information about the target. Reconnaissance is the act of scouting a location to identify vulnerabilities, escape routes, security measures, and patterns of behavior. Jason Pack, a former FBI agent who worked on violent crime and kidnapping cases, told ABC News that if it is the same person in both images, and investigators believe it is, it could indicate that the person was there surveilling the place before the abduction happened. He added that the fact that there was preparation makes it more of a sophisticated type of criminal activity than someone just showing up. Jennifer Coffindaffer, a former FBI agent with 25 years of experience, who now provides analysis on high-profile criminal cases, said on social media, "This is huge news. 2 different photos on 2 different days. For anyone left thinking this was just some burglary gone bad, it absolutely was not. He cased the place. He meant to take Nancy." The implications of this discovery ripple through every aspect of the investigation. It suggests motive. It suggests knowledge. It suggests a connection, however distant, between the suspect and Nancy Guthrie or her family. Random kidnappers do not conduct reconnaissance. Random criminals do not return to the same location multiple times before committing a crime. This was personal, or it was professional, or it was both, and that meant investigators had a new avenue to pursue. They began asking different questions. Who knew Nancy's routine? Who knew she lived alone? Who knew her daughter was Savannah Guthrie? who had access to information about her home, her schedule, her vulnerabilities. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos responded to the CNN report on February 23rd, the same day it was published. He told CBS News directly that the information suggesting the video was taken on different days did not come from the FBI or the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Later that evening, the Sheriff's Department issued a formal statement addressing the reports. The statement said, "We are aware that doorbell images released earlier in the investigation depict a suspect in different stages of attire, including with and without a backpack." But the statement added a critical caveat. There is no date or timestamp associated with these images. Therefore, any suggestion that the photographs were taken on different days is purely speculative. The statement concluded, "The investigation is ongoing and conclusions will be guided by verifiable evidence and established facts." Sheriff Nanos told the Today Show on February 24th, in an interview with Savannah Guthrie's colleagues, that the images recovered from the doorbell camera did not include dates or timestamps, and that any conclusions about when the photos were taken are speculative. This created what appeared to be a direct contradiction between law enforcement sources speaking to CNN, ABC News, and CBS News, and the official position of the Pima County Sheriff's Department. But here is what we know for certain. Multiple credible news organizations, citing multiple independent law enforcement sources, confirmed that these images were taken on different days. These are not tabloid publications. These are CNN, ABC News, and CBS News. Nest Doorbell cameras store metadata separately from the visual image file. Metadata includes information like the date, time, device ID, and other technical details about when and how the image was captured. When investigators recover images from cloud storage, especially when the physical camera has been removed or tampered with, timestamp metadata may not always display in the recovered files when viewed as standard image files. But investigators working the case have access to that metadata. They can access the raw data from Google's servers. They can see exactly when each image was captured, down to the second. And according to sources who have seen that data, the images are from different days. The sheriff's public statement was technically accurate. The images released to the public did not have visible timestamps, but that does not mean the timestamps do not exist. One theory, suggested by analysts who have covered the case, is that investigators wanted to keep this detail confidential. They wanted the suspect to believe that law enforcement thought all the images were from the same night. When FBI Director Kash Patel released the images publicly on social media, without coordinating fully with investigators on the ground in Tucson, that strategy was compromised. CNN's reporting, citing a source involved in the investigation who was surprised by the public release, confirmed that local and federal investigators in Arizona were caught off guard by Director Patel's posts. The source told CNN that investigators in Tucson believed one of the images Patel posted, the one showing the man without a backpack or gun, was not actually from the date of her abduction, but possibly from weeks before, as the man appeared to surveil her home. Authorities had hoped to keep specific details of that image confidential while they worked to identify the suspect and a motive. He wasn't just passing by. When the masked figure stood at Nancy Guthrie's front door on that first visit, without the backpack, without the gun, he was working. He was learning the layout, where the camera pointed, where the blind spots were, whether the camera triggered an alert, how long he could stand there before someone noticed. He was testing Nancy's response. Would she look at the camera feed if it sent her an alert? Would she call police? Would she open the door? He was identifying vulnerabilities. The shrubbery near the porch that could block the lens. The darkness that would conceal his approach. The timing when neighbors were asleep. This is the pattern of a predator who plans. And there are chilling precedents in criminal history that demonstrate exactly how dangerous this pattern is. Brian Kohberger, the former criminology PhD student accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students in November 2022, drove past their house at least 12 times before the murders, according to cell phone data and security footage analyzed by investigators. His white Hyundai Elantra was captured on multiple cameras circling the neighborhood in the weeks before November 13, 2022, the night Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were stabbed to death in their off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. Kohberger studied the house. He studied the neighborhood. He studied the patterns of when people came and went. And then, on the night he was ready, he entered through a sliding glass door, committed the murders, and left behind a knife sheath with his DNA on it. That DNA, processed through investigative genetic genealogy, led to his identification and arrest 6 weeks after the crime. On July 2, 2025, Kohberger pleaded guilty to all 4 counts of first-degree murder. On July 23, 2025, he was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms without parole. The Golden State Killer, Joseph James DeAngelo, was known to break into homes weeks before attacking, moving items around to see if residents would notice. He would enter through unlocked windows, walk through bedrooms, and leave small signs of his presence. If the residents noticed, he would move on to a different target. If they didn't notice, he knew they were unobservant, vulnerable, and likely to be caught off guard when he returned. DeAngelo committed at least 13 murders and more than 50 sexual assaults across California between 1974 and 1986. He evaded capture for more than 3 decades, not because he was lucky, but because he was methodical. In 2018, investigators uploaded a DNA profile from the Golden State Killer crime scenes to GEDmatch, a public genealogy database. The profile connected to a distant relative. Genealogists built a family tree around that connection. The branches narrowed. The search closed in on Joseph James DeAngelo, a former police officer living quietly in Citrus Heights, California. Investigators recovered a discarded item from his trash, a tissue. They confirmed the DNA match. DeAngelo was arrested in April 2018. He later pleaded guilty to multiple counts of murder and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The technology that found him is the same technology now being applied to the DNA recovered from Nancy Guthrie's home. The first visit gave the suspect information: the camera's exact position, its field of view, whether it had night vision capabilities, Nancy's routine, whether she responded to alerts, the best time to return. The second visit, on February 1st at 1:47 in the morning, gave him Nancy. Based on the reporting from CNN, ABC News, and CBS News, and based on analysis from former FBI agents and criminal behavioral experts, a working theory has emerged about what occurred during the suspect's visits to Nancy Guthrie's home. The first visit, the one captured in the image without the backpack and without the gun holster, may have been a test run. The suspect approached the door. He stood in front of the Nest camera. He likely triggered the motion detection. Nest cameras send instant alerts to the homeowner's phone when motion is detected. If Nancy had her phone nearby, and if her notifications were turned on, she would have received an alert. What happened next is unknown. Did Nancy see the alert? Did she open the app and look at the live feed? Did she see the masked figure and feel threatened? Did she call police? There is no public record of Nancy reporting a suspicious person at her door in the days or weeks before her disappearance. There is no record of a 911 call from her address. This suggests one of 3 possibilities. Possibility 1. Nancy did not see the alert. Her phone may have been in another room. Her notifications may have been silenced. She may have been asleep. Possibility 2. Nancy saw the alert but dismissed it. She may have thought it was a false alarm, a delivery person, or someone who approached the wrong house by mistake. Possibility 3. Nancy saw the alert, felt threatened, but did not report it. She may have been scared. She may have worried that calling police would escalate the situation. We do not know which of these possibilities is accurate. What we do know is that the suspect returned. One theory, according to sources who spoke to ABC News, is that the suspect approached the door the first time, noticed the camera, and was scared off. He may have realized the camera was recording. He may have worried that Nancy had seen him. He may have decided to abort that night and return when he was better prepared. But he didn't stop. He came back. The second visit, the one on February 1st in the early hours of the morning, was different. This time, he came prepared. He wore the backpack, which likely contained supplies, restraints, tools, or other materials he would need. He carried the gun, holstered and ready for use if Nancy resisted or if he encountered someone else at the property. And this time, he didn't just stand in front of the camera. He disabled it. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, Nancy's Nest Doorbell camera was tampered with and disconnected. The video footage shows the suspect reaching up with a gloved hand, attempting to cover the lens with his hand or with tape. When that didn't fully obscure the view, when the camera continued to capture partial images of his movements, he walked off the porch, bent down, picked up shrubbery from the landscaping, and used that to block the camera more effectively. The camera went dark. Shortly after he entered the home. How he entered is not entirely clear from public reporting. Investigators have not disclosed whether the door was unlocked, whether he picked the lock, whether he broke a window or whether Nancy opened the door herself. What is clear is that by 2:28 a.m., Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker application had disconnected from her Apple devices, indicating she was no longer in range of her home's Wi-Fi network. She was gone. By 2:36 a.m., just 8 minutes after Nancy's pacemaker disconnected, a Ring camera at a neighbor's home roughly 2.5 miles away captured a vehicle speeding past at a high rate of speed. Investigators have not publicly confirmed whether this vehicle is connected to Nancy's disappearance, but the timing is significant. In the days following Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, investigators made a specific and deliberate request to residents in her neighborhood. They asked anyone living within a 2-mile radius of Nancy's home to submit any footage from doorbell cameras, security cameras, or any other surveillance systems, and they asked residents to focus on footage from specific dates. One of those dates was January 11, 2026, between 9 p.m. and midnight. The other was January 31st, between 9:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. At the time this request was made, it was unclear why investigators were interested in January 11th. That date is 3 weeks before Nancy's disappearance. But the revelation that the suspect had visited Nancy's property on a date prior to February 1st provides a possible explanation. Investigators may have identified suspicious activity on January 11th. They may have footage from neighboring cameras showing a vehicle or a person in the area on that date that matched the description of the suspect or his vehicle. Investigators are now reviewing thousands of hours of video obtained from the greater Tucson area, according to a law enforcement source who spoke to CNN. They are looking for the masked figure. They are looking for the backpack. They are looking for the vehicle he may have been driving. They are looking for any footage that places him in the area on dates other than February 1st. Because every additional sighting is another data point, another opportunity to track his movements, another chance to identify a pattern. If the suspect visited on January 11th and then again on February 1st, that is a 3-week gap. That gap suggests patience. It suggests he was not acting impulsively. It suggests he waited, watched, and chose the optimal moment. It also suggests he may have visited other times. He may have driven past the house. He may have parked nearby and observed from a distance. Investigators have also canvassed gun shops in the Tucson area. The suspect was seen in the doorbell video wearing a gun holster that Sheriff Nanos described as having some pretty unique characteristics. The positioning of the holster, near the center of the suspect's waist rather than on the hip, is unusual. Most holsters are designed to sit on the dominant hand hip for quick access. A center waist holster, sometimes called an appendix carry or belly band holster, is less common and suggests either tactical training or a specific carrying preference. This detail matters because it narrows the pool of suspects. Not everyone carries a weapon this way. People who do often have training, either military, law enforcement, or specialized civilian firearms courses. CNN spoke to roughly half a dozen gun shop owners in the Tucson area in the days following the release of the surveillance images. One owner said FBI officials visited about a week after the images were released and showed him pictures of various people, though he didn't recognize any of the individuals. The FBI was showing photos of potential suspects, cross-referencing individuals who had purchased firearms, holsters, or tactical equipment in the Tucson area in recent months. Another gun shop owner told CNN affiliate KOLD that an FBI agent asked him to review between 18 to 24 images and names for gun purchases. He searched the shop's computer system, going through recent transactions, and found no matches. The FBI is methodically working through every investigative lead, every gun shop, every tactical equipment retailer, every surveillance camera, every neighbor, every tip. DNA was recovered from Nancy Guthrie's property. Sheriff Nanos confirmed publicly that this DNA does not match Nancy Guthrie or anyone close to her. It does not match any family member. It does not match anyone with authorized access to the property. The DNA is from an unknown male. That DNA was submitted to CODIS, the FBI-managed combined DNA index system, which contains more than 19 million offender profiles. The search returned no match. This means the suspect, whoever he is, has no prior criminal record that required DNA submission. He has never been convicted of a qualifying offense. His profile simply does not exist in the database. This is both frustrating and revealing. It is frustrating because it means traditional database searching will not identify him. But it is revealing because it suggests the suspect may be a first-time offender, at least in terms of crimes serious enough to require DNA collection. Sheriff Nanos confirmed publicly that investigators are exploring investigative genetic genealogy options, a forensic technique that searches for suspects through the DNA of their relatives by uploading forensic profiles to genealogy databases. This is the same technique that identified the Golden State Killer, the same technique that identified Brian Kohberger. Investigative genetic genealogy works by analyzing hundreds of thousands of genetic markers across the entire genome, far more than the 20 markers used in traditional CODIS searches. This comprehensive profile is then uploaded to public genealogy databases like GED Match and Family Tree DNA, which allow law enforcement access. The system searches for genetic relatives, third cousins, fourth cousins, fifth cousins, people who share as little as 1% of their DNA with the suspect. Once a match is found, genealogists build a family tree around that match, working forward and backward through generations using public records, census data, obituaries, birth and death certificates, and other genealogical resources. The tree narrows, the branches close in, and eventually the search identifies a candidate or a small group of candidates. At that point, investigators move to covert DNA collection. They obtain a discarded item from the suspect's environment, a cup from a restaurant, a cigarette butt, a tissue from a trash receptacle. That sample is tested to confirm whether it matches the crime scene profile. This is the protocol that confirmed Joseph James DeAngelo as the Golden State Killer. This is the protocol that confirmed Brian Kohberger. And this is the protocol now being prepared for the person who stood at Nancy Guthrie's front door. In addition to the DNA found at Nancy's home, investigators recovered a glove approximately 2 miles from her house during the extensive search operation that followed her disappearance. The glove appeared to visually match the gloves worn by the suspect in the doorbell footage. DNA was recovered from that glove and tested. On March 5, 2026, the Pima County Sheriff's Department announced that the DNA from the glove had been traced to a local restaurant worker who is not part of this investigation. The restaurant worker had been in the area, likely during a search operation or during media coverage of the case, and had discarded or dropped the glove. It was a dead end, but it eliminated one potential piece of evidence. Approximately 16 gloves were recovered in total during the search of the area surrounding Nancy's home. Most were traced to search team members who had been combing the desert terrain on foot. The DNA evidence that matters, the DNA that investigators believe belongs to the suspect, is the DNA recovered from inside Nancy Guthrie's home. That DNA is still being analyzed. Forensic labs are working to determine whether it can be successfully uploaded to genealogy databases and whether there are sufficient genetic relatives in those databases to build a family tree. Investigators are working to determine the exact date of the reconnaissance visit. Camera metadata may reveal whether it was January 11th, the date authorities specifically asked neighbors to review footage from, or another date entirely. They are analyzing whether the suspect visited once before February 1st or multiple times. The CNN source used the phrase multiple occasions, which could mean 2 visits or more. If there were multiple reconnaissance visits, each one represents another opportunity to have been captured on camera, another chance to have been seen by a neighbor. They are examining what time of day the reconnaissance visit occurred. The image released by the FBI shows the suspect at the door, but it is difficult to determine from the image alone whether it was taken during daylight hours or at night. If it happened during daylight hours, the suspect may have been visible to neighbors, to passing vehicles, to anyone in the area. They are determining whether Nancy Guthrie was home during the reconnaissance visit. If she was, and if her phone alerted her to motion at the front door, camera records from Nest may show whether she viewed the alert through the app. If Nancy saw the masked figure during the reconnaissance visit and did not report it, that raises painful questions about whether she felt safe, whether she trusted that authorities would respond, or whether she simply did not realize the danger she was in. They are cross-referencing neighbor footage to identify what vehicle, if any, the suspect was driving during the reconnaissance visit. Investigators have received tips about a white van being seen in the area, but those tips remain unconfirmed, and they are processing more than 19,000 tips submitted to the FBI as of late February, working methodically to identify any lead that connects to the masked figure at Nancy's door. The FBI's National Threat Operations Center has been working around the clock to answer calls coming into the 1-800-CALL-FBI tip line and to review tips submitted online at tips.fbi.gov. 19,000 tips is an extraordinary volume. Each tip must be reviewed, assessed for credibility, and either pursued or ruled out. Investigators are sorting through this massive influx of information, looking for the tips that matter, the tips that contain verifiable details, the tips that point toward a suspect with a connection to Nancy, to Tucson, to the timeline. More than 40 days have passed since Nancy Guthrie was taken from her home. Investigators from local, state, and federal agencies continue to search the desert landscape surrounding Tucson. They continue to process tips. They continue to analyze DNA evidence. They continue to build the timeline. A 5-person dedicated task force, 4 detectives and a sergeant from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, has been moved to the FBI's Tucson office to work the case full-time. This is an extraordinary allocation of resources. The $1.2 million combined reward, including $1 million from the Guthrie family, $100,000 from the FBI, and additional funds from Crime Stoppers, remains active. This is one of the largest rewards ever offered in a missing person case in Arizona. And the surveillance images of the masked figure at Nancy's front door remain the most important pieces of evidence in the investigation. The revelation that the suspect visited Nancy Guthrie's home before the night of her abduction has reshaped the investigative focus. Authorities are now reviewing footage from weeks before February 1st. They are interviewing neighbors about any suspicious activity they may have observed in January, in December, in the weeks and months before Nancy disappeared. Somewhere in the weeks before Nancy disappeared, someone saw something. Someone noticed a vehicle that didn't belong in the neighborhood. Someone saw a person lingering near her property. On March 5, 2026, Savannah Guthrie returned to the Today Show set for the first time since her mother's disappearance. She did not return to the air. She did not resume her role as co-host. She visited Studio 1A at 30 Rockefeller Plaza to thank her colleagues. The visit was emotional. Footage showed Savannah embracing her colleagues, including her former co-host Hoda Kotb, who had been co-anchoring the morning program during Savannah's absence. A source present during the visit told CNN that Savannah thanked her colleagues for caring about my mom as much as I do. She said she has every intention of coming back to the show, but added, "I don't know how to come back, but I don't know how not to. You're my family, and I would like to try." She told them, "I'm still standing and I still have hope and I'm still me." That statement, "I'm still standing and I still have hope," reflects the agonizing reality of cases like this. More than 40 days without answers. More than 40 days without knowing where Nancy is, whether she is safe, whether she is alive. NBC News released a statement saying that while Savannah plans to return to the show on air, she remains focused right now on supporting her family and working to help bring Nancy home. The Today Show set has been decorated with yellow flowers, matching the yellow ribbons that have been tied to trees and fences outside Nancy's home in Tucson. Yellow is the color associated with missing persons cases, a symbol of hope, of remembrance, of the belief that the missing will return. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She requires daily medication for her cardiac condition. She has a pacemaker that monitors her heartbeat. She cannot walk 50 yards by herself. She has been missing for more than 40 days. And the person who took her is still out there. A quiet street in the Catalina foothills. The same street where Nancy Guthrie lived for years. Yellow ribbons still hang on trees outside her home. Bouquets of flowers, some fresh, some wilted, rest against the fence. Cards and notes from strangers, from neighbors, from people across the country who have been following her case are propped against the gate. A camera crew packs up equipment. A sheriff's vehicle drives slowly past, part of the ongoing patrol of the neighborhood. The desert stretches out beyond the neighborhood, vast and unforgiving. Miles of rugged terrain, rocky hills, dry washes, cacti and scrub brush. Search teams have combed this landscape on foot, on horseback, with drones, with search dogs. Somewhere in that landscape, or somewhere far beyond it, Nancy Guthrie waits. The masked figure believed no one would notice. He believed the darkness in the mask would be enough, but he left something behind. Images, DNA, a pattern, and that pattern is closing in. This case doesn't end with unanswered questions because investigators aren't working hard enough. It ends with unanswered questions because the person who took Nancy Guthrie covered his tracks carefully. But he made mistakes. He appeared on camera, not once, but multiple times. He left DNA at the scene. He visited the property more than once, creating additional opportunities to have been seen, to have been captured on neighboring cameras. And every mistake is a thread that investigators are pulling. The surveillance images are being analyzed frame by frame. The DNA is being processed through the most advanced forensic techniques available. The tips are being reviewed methodically. The timeline is being reconstructed minute by minute. Somewhere in that massive data, there is a name, there is an identity, there is a connection, and investigators believe they will find it. If this case has stayed with you, if you believe Nancy Guthrie deserves every investigative effort we can bring, subscribe to Crime Uncovered. Hit that notification bell. We don't stop following cases like this until the truth is found. We don't move on when the headlines fade. And if you have information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, contact the FBI tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI. You can call the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. You can submit tips online at tips.fbi.gov. All tips can be submitted anonymously. A $1.2 million reward is available for information leading to Nancy's recovery. She deserves to come home. Her family deserves answers. And the masked figure who stood at her door, who came back to finish what he started, deserves to be identified, arrested, and held accountable. Every detail matters. Every tip matters. Every voice matters. Bring Nancy Guthrie home.